really quickly, unless Benny, you want to ask?
No, I got another question coming, but go ahead. And actually, we're going to open this up eventually, but this can be a conversation amongst you as well.
I think, can we turn this to conversation among us? Because I'm having a real difficult time being a theater maker, and this is very linear, and I appreciate it.
Yes,
but, how we have church in Harlem is how we do theater in Harlem. So I think that this is a conversation between us and you, and I'm so happy to be invited to the conversation. I think that for the question that you asked, none of us would be up here who weren't doing extraordinary work. And none of us would be up here who weren't standing on very mighty shoulders of our ancestors. So let's just take that as a given, right? I am utterly boiling because the lack of, just in general, urgency in the work that we do, right? We heard brilliantly the history of Black theater in New York and Harlem, the African Grove Theater, the American Negro Theater, one of my mother, Dr. Tier's close confidants, Ossie Davis and Ruby Dee, they were all activists. Their art was the fuel that helped them create progress so we could all be sitting here today. And we sit back and we watch modern day lynchings on the news every day, with teens being shot unarmed by police officers, and we leave our activism to hashtags. It's utterly impossible for me to wrap my head around unless we're talking in conversation about these things on our stage, right? So like, as artists, what we are should be, in my opinion, activists, right? And the work that we do, though is entertaining and pleasurable, it is to liberate and to affect change so that we don't sit up here and have this conversation generation after generation after generation and the same shit is going on. So for me, Black theater and the 2000 to 2015 can only be about that. You can do Shakespeare, you can do August Wilson, but why? Why are you doing it? And I think that it woven into what we do as artists, because it's not going to be social media, it's not going to be a hashtag. The revolution will always be in the hands of the artists. And if we're not thinking revolutionary in the way that we produce, in the way that we have conversations, intergenerational conversations, intercultural conversation, if we're not having an equal conversation about the LGBTQ community with our community, then we are doing a disservice as Black artists who make Black theater. And so I think it's wonderful we're all here, and I think it's wonderful that we know our history and continue to learn it and document it and archive it, but I want to hear from you, from all of us, the urgency and the importance of what we do. I think that Black theater holds a sacred space in the soup that is American theater. We have the mighty task to continue to answer the calls of our ancestors. Mainstream has never been our stream, okay? And we can do mainstream projects, and we can bring them to Broadway, and we can bring Broadway to Harlem, but the fact of the matter is, Harry Belafonte, Nina Simone, these people hid in the backs of cars to be able to perform in the South because they knew if they could change the hearts and minds of the people around them, they could affect legislation change, they could talk about equity and parity, and so that's what I'm interested in, and I think that's what Harlem Theater today is. And I just wanted to interject that into our very academic conversation.
I think it's wonderful in terms of looking into the future of how to create theater. And But I also charge us that if we want to make theater that is provocative, that is about social change, I think we also have to be willing to break the mold and to do theater in new and interesting ways. And I say that because I sit at the table oftentimes with new voices, emerging voices that are trying to get into these large institutions. And the door is barely open. And they are crafting new ways of telling their stories. But as producers, the challenge I find, and one of the reasons why I'm not the first to produce, I'm always willing to help develop and to have the artists that I work with be prepared and ready to hand a script over to the signature, to the public, to Soho, Rap, whoever. But we're very much aware that they're checking off boxes, right? So my thing too, to fellow producers and all of us in the communities, how do we produce theater in a different way? We cannot match. I'm not trying to match the signature. I'm not trying to match the public. I'm not trying to match Soho, Rap. We have got to figure out a new way of telling stories. If it means swinging from the rafters or standing, see, because back in the day, they were doing it in a different way. If it meant standing on the street corner and telling your story, that's what it's about. And if we're honest with ourselves, yes, we all want to get paid and we all want to eat and we all want to clothe ourselves and feed our families. But it really does call for a lot of us of color to really tell our stories in a different way. Be willing to create theater in a different way. We have to bring and shift the whole paradigm, because our artists are also telling the stories in a different way. And the other thing that I find oftentimes is we're always looking for the black card. Like, where's your black card? And what I mean by that is that's not black enough, or that's not the kind of black story I want to hear, right? And I'm working with African folks, Caribbean folks, people telling their stories in many different ways. And some of them don't want to tell about the lynchings, right? They want to tell another kind of story. So I got to be open to hearing all kinds of stories. That's the other thing. So I'm constantly perplexed on how to pitch and tell the story in a different way. And I'm pushing my writers, I'm a writer myself. How do I tell my story in a different way? I cannot fit in that box, don't want to fit in a box, because I really do believe that we all want to hear something new and something different, and we want to be challenged in a different way, and we know that this race and diversity conversation is not an easy one, and everyone don't want to walk out feeling blamed and burdened and, you know, all the things we feel and mad. So we got to come to the conversation in a new way, and we got to figure out, for me, how to have the conversation in a new way and encourage people to tell it in a new way. I don't know if there's any answer to that, but
well, I'm wondering, what are those new ways?
Yeah, well, and I think that's exactly what we're trying to do at TMTC. Is we often get the misfits. You know, those artists of color who have gotten the readings at all the different places, who have had all these development opportunities, which are great and wonderful to help them develop their voice. But when it comes to actually taking that step and taking that risk on a news story that maybe is simply just about these people, but recognizing that in and of itself, putting brown bodies on stage is a political statement.
Yes.
And really encouraging our artists to do that, and then for us to go and say, great, this is our turn to take that risk and produce this show by this playwright that perhaps people don't know, but that the work is powerful and the work is good, and to really introduce to the Harlem community, the New York City community, of these new ways of telling our stories and giving them that opportunity to really shine. I think that's really what, moving forward and thinking about the future of theater in Harlem is how can we take up that risk, going to what Ty was saying about being fiscally responsible too. How can we figure out strategies to also be fiscally responsible while taking those risks to give that and create that space for our artists to challenge the mold and produce and create new work?
I want to make a comment about the white gaze. And the quote you had was very powerful. I've forgotten all of it by now, but you know, the white gaze is always going to be there. The white gaze comes in and out, and I think the breadth of this panel is proof that cultural production and theatrical production has been happening in Harlem consistently over time. Whether it gets called a renaissance or not, and whether it's popular or not, is oftentimes reflective of which white person is interested in coming uptown at a particular time, right? So I think we all have to recognize that we're part of we recognize we're part of this history. I think what is challenging, I'll address it from the experience of Harlem 9, is that we started as a group of producers coming together to talk about the challenges of producing. I mean, that's always the issue when you're trying to do something. And of course, what do producers do when they get in a room? They want to do something. So we came up with the festival, and what we found is that if we focus on creating the space for the artists and taking care of the artists, right, and allowing them to just do their work, they in fact have so many stories to tell. And they in fact take old work and put it through their lens and reflect the times that are happening. So I think cultural production, particularly in people of color, and this is in Black communities and many people of color communities, our art is oftentimes not just art for art's sake or not just for entertainment. Even the entertainment pieces have liberatory aspects because the importance of narrative in shaping our reality cannot go underestimated. And if we just support these narratives and put more of these narratives out there, I think that addresses the social justice aspect of things. Right. And well, I'll stop there for an analysis.
So that leads me to, how would any of you out there answer the statement that was said to me 30 years ago in the mid-1980s when I was running the Afrocentric Oakland Ensemble Theater in Oakland, California, by a funder who said, "Who needs you? Because the white theaters that are now getting into this kind of work can do it better with their own resources."
That's not true.
They also are giving opportunities to a very small and select group of artists.
So what is unique? What is it that only you can do?
Who said that to you? I don't know who said that to you.
By the way, that we said 30 years ago, the CITAVOS report that just came out earlier this year says the same thing. So,
That's what I'm saying.
yeah.
I don't believe that they're doing it better, and they may be producing the work, but that does not necessarily mean that it's better. And I go to the theater, and oftentimes I walk out and I ask myself, who's in the room with that artist? Who's asking the hard questions? Who's pushing? And oftentimes I feel that white people are very intimidated about asking those hard questions of our artists in the room. And I understand the conversation is very difficult. So I'm often asking, who's asking those hard questions? So the work, just because the work is being produced doesn't mean that it's, it's being questioned or they're doing it better than us.
Ty, Go ahead, Ty, then we have a question.
I'm trying to get you all to see my Christmas show.
Oh,
Go ahead.